I never thought I'd be telling this story. Most people wouldn't believe it, and honestly if I hadn't lived through it I wouldn't either. But it happened right here in San Antonio at the H-E-B on Blanco Road, the one with the massive parking lot that's always half empty and somehow still feels crowded. It started on a Tuesday, which feels appropriate. Nothing good ever happens on a Tuesday. I was with Vanessa. Vanessa with the long dark hair that smelled like coconut and vanilla, even at the end of a long day. We'd been dating for about 3 months, and everything was still that perfect, shiny new phase where you notice every little detail about the other person. I noticed everything about Vanessa. The way her lower lip was slightly fuller than the upper, how she'd bite it absently while reading a text message. The way her hips swayed in those tight, faded jeans she loved to wear, the ones with the small rip just above the back pocket that gave me a glimpse of tan skin. She had this habit of standing with one foot slightly turned in, making her calf muscle flex in a way I found inexplicably captivating. We were just doing a weekly grocery run. Mundane stuff. Milk, eggs, bread, the kind of things that make up a life. I was pushing the cart and she was walking beside me, her arm brushing against mine every few steps. Each touch sent a little jolt through me, a reminder of the night before, of her body under mine in the dim light of my bedroom. I kept stealing glances at her, at the way her simple white t-shirt stretched across her chest when she reached for something on a high shelf, the faint outline of her bra strap visible through the thin cotton. I had to force myself to look away, to focus on the list in my hand. It felt juvenile, this constant, simmering want, but I couldn't help it. She was a magnet, and I was just a piece of dumb metal. The store was its usual fluorescent-lit self, the hum of freezers, the squeak of shopping cart wheels, the distant beep of scanners. We made our way through the aisles, a comfortable silence between us. She'd point at something, a weird-shaped squash, a brand of cookies she remembered from her childhood, and I'd nod, my mind only half on the food. The other half was tracing the line of her neck, wondering what it would be like to kiss her right there, in the middle of the cereal aisle. We ended up with a cart full of normal things: ground beef, pasta, a bag of apples, a 6-pack of beer. The usual. We headed to the checkout lanes. The human man ones were packed, lines snaking back into the clothing section. Vanessa sighed, tapping her fingernail, painted a pale, shimmery pink, on the cart handle. "Let's just use the self-checkout," she said, nodding toward the bank of automated stations. "It'll be faster." I agreed. I've never minded the self-checkout. There's a weird, solitary satisfaction to it, scanning your own items, bagging them yourself. It makes you feel competent, even if it's the most basic task in the world. We wheeled our cart over to an open station. I started scanning. Beep. 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 Vanessa leaned against the divider watching me, a small smile playing on her lips. I could feel the heat of her body next to mine. Her sandals were simple leather straps, and I found myself staring at her feet. Her toenails were the same shimmery pink as her fingernails. The strap bit gently into the skin on the top of her foot, and I had a sudden vivid image of taking that foot in my hand, feeling the delicate bones of her ankle, kissing my way up her calf. I shook my head slightly, trying to dispel the thought. Not the time, not the place. That's when I noticed him. He was at the station next to ours. An older man, maybe in his late 60s, with thinning gray hair combed neatly across a pale scalp. He was dressed oddly formal for an H-E-B on a Tuesday afternoon. A brown tweed jacket with leather patches on the elbows. Despite the oppressive Texas heat outside, he wasn't scanning anything. His cart was empty. He was just standing there, perfectly still, staring at the screen of his self-checkout machine. It was the stillness that got me first. In a busy grocery store, everyone is in motion. Everyone has a purpose, a trajectory. This man was a statue. His hands were resting on the sides of the scanner, not touching it, just resting there. His posture was ramrod straight. I finished scanning our last item, the beer, and moved to the payment screen. I slid my card, the machine whirred, and the receipt began to print out with its usual noisy shudder. "Don't forget the receipt," Vanessa said, her voice pulling me out of my thoughts. She hated it when I left them behind. "I won't," I said, grabbing the long strip of paper. I gave it a cursory glance just to confirm the total. Everything seemed normal: ground beef, pasta, apples, beer. I was about to crumple it and shove it in my pocket when my eye caught something at the bottom. Below the beer, there was another line item. Asterisk unknown item, $0.00 asterisk. I frowned. That's weird. What's weird? Vanessa asked, leaning closer. Her hair brushed my shoulder, and that coconut vanilla scent washed over me, momentarily distracting. The machine added something, an unknown item for $0. She peered at the receipt, her brow furrowed. Huh. Glitch in the matrix, I guess. Come on, let's go, I'm starving. She grabbed a bag and started walking toward the exit. I took one last look at the receipt, then shoved it in my jeans pocket. Following her, as I passed the old man's station, I glanced over. He was still standing there in the exact same position. But now his head was turned just slightly, and he was looking directly at me. Not at my face, not at my cart, my pocket, where I just put the receipt. His eyes were a pale, watery blue. They didn't blink. There was no curiosity in them, no confusion, no emotion at all. They were just receiving. Like two little cameras. A cold trickle of unease went down my spine. I quickly looked away and caught up to Vanessa, putting my arm around her waist, pulling her close. I needed the solid, warm reality of her. She smiled up at me, and for a second, the weirdness of the moment faded. We loaded the groceries into the trunk of my car, a beat-up Honda Civic that had seen better days, and drove back to my apartment. The incident with the receipt and the strange man lingered in the back of my mind, but it was easily pushed aside by the much more immediate presence of Vanessa in my passenger seat. She had kicked off her sandals and tucked her feet up under her, the hem of her shorts riding up to expose the smooth, tan skin of her thighs. I kept my hand on her knee, my thumb making small circles, feeling the warmth of her skin through the denim. My mind was already racing ahead to the rest of the evening, to getting her inside, to getting those clothes off. We unloaded the groceries in my small, cluttered kitchen. As I was putting the beer in the fridge, the receipt fell out of my pocket and fluttered to the floor. Vanessa bent over to pick it up, and I was treated to a perfect view of her backside in those jeans. The desire was a sharp, physical pull in my gut. She straightened up and looked at the receipt again. Seriously, what is this? She said, holding it up. Unknown item. It's so creepy. It's a computer error, Van, I said, coming up behind her and wrapping my arms around her waist, nuzzling her neck. Forget about it. She leaned back into me for a moment, a soft sigh escaping her lips. But then she gently pushed me away, still staring at the receipt. No, but look, it has a code. PLU40987. That's specific for a glitch. I sighed, my romantic momentum thoroughly broken. You and your details. Come on, let's make dinner. We made spaghetti, and the receipt was forgotten on the counter. We ate on the couch, watching some forgettable movie, her legs draped over my lap. I ran my hand up and down her calf, feeling the muscle tense and relax under my fingers. My focus was entirely on her, on the scent of her shampoo, the sound of her laughter, the way her chest rose and fell with each breath. The strange man at the grocery store was a distant memory. Later, after we'd finished eating and the movie credits were rolling, I got up to throw away the trash. I picked up the receipt from the counter, intending to ball it up with the napkins. But something made me stop. I unfolded it and looked at it again under the kitchen light. Asterisk unknown item, $0.00 star. PLU40987. It was just a weird line of text. But the longer I looked at it, the more the number seemed to pulse on the page as if they were somehow active, and I remembered the man's eyes. Those pale, unblinking eyes. Shaking my head, I crumpled it up and threw it away. I was being ridiculous. I went back to the couch, where Vanessa was already half asleep, her head lolling against the cushion. I kissed her forehead. Come on, let's go to bed. She nodded sleepily and let me lead her to the bedroom. The strange receipt and the strange man were the furthest things from my mind for the rest of the night. The next week we were back at the same H-E-B. It was a habit now. Tuesday night grocery run. This time we needed more stuff. Cleaning supplies, toilet paper, ingredients for a chili Vanessa wanted to try. The cart was full. Vanessa was in a playful mood. She teased me by putting things in the cart I didn't want, gummy worms, a garishly colored energy drink, and then laugh when I pretended to be annoyed. She was wearing a loose, sleeveless top, and every time she reached for something the fabric would gap, giving me a fleeting, tantalizing glimpse of the side of her breast, the curve of her ribs. I was hyper-aware of her, of every movement, every laugh. The grocery store felt like our own private world. We headed to the self-checkout again. The place was less busy this time that I started scanning our items, the familiar beep 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 filling the space between us. Vanessa was bagging, her movements efficient and graceful that I was scanning a can of tomatoes when I felt it. That feeling of being watched. The skin on the back of my neck prickled that I casually glanced over my shoulder. He was there. The same man, the same brown tweed jacket at the same self-checkout station as before. His cart was, again, completely empty, and he was, again, perfectly still, hands resting on the machine, staring at the blank screen that a cold knot tightened in my stomach. What were the odds? San Antonio is a big city. This HEB, while our regular, wasn't the only one that it felt like too much of a coincidence. You okay? Vanessa asked, noticing I'd stopped scanning. Yeah, fine, I said, my voice coming out a little strained that I quickly finished the rest of the items, my movements jerky that I slid my card, my heart beating a little too fast. The machine processed the payment, and the receipt started printing that I snatched it from the machine before it had even finished, my eyes scanning the list of items. There it was at the very bottom. Asterisk unknown item, $0.00 asterisk PLU 40987 the same code, the same non-item. Oh, you have got to be kidding me, I muttered. What? Vanessa said, taking the receipt from my hand, her fingers brushed against mine, and for once I didn't feel a thrill, just a cold dread. She looked at it and her playful mood vanished. Again? That's really strange. It's the same code, I said, my voice low that I couldn't help myself that I looked over at the man that he was still staring at his screen. But as if sensing my gaze, his head began to turn. Slowly, mechanically, those pale blue eyes locked onto mine. Then they drifted down to the receipt in Vanessa's hand. This time there was something in his eyes, not a threat, not anger that it was, recognition, and something else that a deep, profound satisfaction that he gave a single, almost imperceptible nod that I felt a jolt of pure, undiluted fear that it was ice water in my veins that I grabbed Vanessa's arm, probably too hard. Let's go, now. What? What's wrong? She asked, confused by my sudden urgency. Just come on, I said, my voice tight that I started pushing the cart toward the exit, not bothering to bag the last few items that I could feel his eyes on my back, drilling into me that I didn't look back that we practically ran to the car that I threw the bags into the trunk, slamming it shut. Vanessa got in the passenger side, her face pale and concerned. What was that about? She asked as I started the car and peeled out of the parking lot. That guy, I said, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The old man in the tweed jacket that he was there last week, that he was there again today, that he was watching us. Vanessa was silent for a moment, processing. Okay, that's a little creepy, but maybe he's just a lonely old man who likes to people watch at the grocery store. It's weird, but not, like, criminal. He had nothing in his cart, Vanessa. Nothing. Both times that he wasn't there to shop, that he was just standing there, and he looked at the receipt. Both times that he nodded at me. My voice was rising, edged with a panic I couldn't control. That I took a deep breath, trying to calm down that I was scaring her. She reached over and put a hand on my leg, her touch was calming. Hey, that it's okay, that it's probably nothing, that a coincidence, that let's just go home. I nodded, but the fear didn't leave me that it had taken root. When we got back to my apartment, I took the new receipt and compared it to the old one, which I'd fished out of the kitchen trash. That it was identical. The same mysterious line. The same code. PLU 40987. That I got my laptop and did a search. Nothing that I searched for HEB PLU codes. That I found lists for fruits, vegetables, meats. .40987 wasn't on any of them. That it was a ghost code. The next few days were tense. That I was jumpy, distracted, that I couldn't focus at work, that I'd find myself staring out the window, seeing those pale blue eyes. At night, I'd dream of the grocery store, of endless aisles, of beeping scanners, and of the man always standing at the end of the aisle watching me, a long blank receipt streaming from his hand like a ribbon. My relationship with Vanessa became strained. My desire for her was still there, a constant hum, but it was now tangled up with this pervasive anxiety that I'd be kissing her, my hands on her waist, pulling her close, and my mind would flash to the receipt, to the code, to the man's nod, that I'd pull away, frustrated, confused, that she'd look at me with hurt and concern. Talk to me, she'd say one night, her hand on my cheek, that we were in bed, the sheets tangled around our legs, the moon was bright through the blinds, casting stripes of light across her body that I could see the perfect curve of her hip, the shadow between her breasts that I wanted her so badly it was a physical ache, but my mind was a swarm of bees. I can't stop thinking about it, I admitted, my voice hoarse. It feels significant. That IT feels like a message or a warning. It's a computer glitch, baby, she said softly, stroking my hair. It's a bug in the software. That IT doesn't mean anything. Then why him? Why is he always there? I don't know. Maybe he works there? Maybe he's some kind of auditor? It's his job to watch the self-checkouts. It was a rational explanation. That IT made sense. But my gut screamed that it was wrong. That IT was too clean, too easy. The feeling I got from him wasn't professional interest. That IT was personal. The following Tuesday, I told Vanessa I'd go to the store alone. That I made up an excuse about needing some specific tools from the hardware section that I knew would bore her. That I needed to go back. That I needed to see if he would be there. That I needed to confront this, to prove to myself that it was nothing. The store felt different this time. The fluorescent lights seemed harsher, their buzz more menacing. The beep of the scanner sounded like little electronic heartbeats. That I moved through the aisles quickly, grabbing the few things I needed, my head on a swivel, looking for the tweed jacket. That he wasn't in the produce section. Not in dairy, not in frozen foods. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Part of me hoped he wouldn't be there, that it was all in my head. The other, darker part needed him to be there. Needed to know that I headed to the self-checkout. My mouth was dry, and there he was, same station, empty cart, posture like a soldier at attention, staring at the silent, dark screen of the scanner. This time, I didn't look away. That I walked right up to the station next to his and started